Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to completely demystify how to monitor, control, and honestly perfect your organizational processes using the power of data. You know, if you've ever wondered how top-tier manufacturers and distributors keep their defect rates so unbelievably low, well, the secret isn't magic. It's math. Specifically, it's statistical process control. Here's our roadmap for today. First, an introduction to SPC, followed by the anatomy of control charts and developing and using those charts. Then we'll take a deep dive into U-charts, talk about selecting the right chart, and finally wrap up with implementing SPC systems. All right, part 1, Introduction to SPC. So, statistical process control. Basically, it's a methodology for monitoring a process to identify special causes of variation. But listen, it isn't just passive observation, right? It's an active, dynamic system tied directly to your organization's SMART objectives. You know, your specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals. It's literally designed to spot hidden variations and tell you exactly when you need to step in and take corrective action. Moving on to part 2, let's look at the anatomy of control charts. Think of your process kind of like a highway. You've got your process mean, or center line, right there in the middle. Flanking it are the upper control limit, the UCL, and the lower control limit, the LCL. These act exactly like guardrails for your process, especially when we're looking at variable data. They mathematically define the normal, expected variations so you don't veer off the road. To put it formally, a control chart is really just a run chart that has those two horizontal guardrails added in. You're taking standard run data over time, say the precise measurements of parts coming right off an assembly line, and applying mathematical boundaries so you can physically see the stability. And here's what a healthy, controlled process actually looks like. Notice how every single data point is safely bouncing between the upper and lower limits? Not a single point breaks outside those dashed lines, and the spread above and below the center line is, roughly balanced. When you see this, you can confidently say your process is stable and predictable. Section 3, Developing and Using Charts. Now, according to the source material, there are 3 main phases to building these. First, you prepare. This means choosing whether you're measuring variables or attributes and locking in your sample size and frequency. Second, you collect data. Record your observations, calculate your averages or ranges, and plot them. And third, you determine your initial limits by actively computing the UCL and LCL and drawing them right on the chart. Sticking to these 3 logical steps absolutely prevents cognitive overload and makes sure you have the right data before doing any heavy math. And this data? It's incredibly valuable for process capability measurements. You can actually estimate your standard deviation using a simple formula, R bar divided by D2. So why does this matter? Well, because understanding your capability lets you calculate things like DPMO, defects per million opportunities. That is a massively critical metric for knowing exactly how capable your process is of meeting actual customer demands. All right, part 4, let's take a deep dive into U-charts. Imagine a catalog distributor shipping out orders every day. They're tracking different categories of defects, maybe major ones like wrong quantities or minor ones like a typo on a packing slip. But there's a huge catch here. Their daily output volume wildly fluctuates. Because that sample size changes every single day, standard charts just won't cut it. This is exactly where a U-chart shines. So, a U-chart applies specifically when your samples are of unequal size. To build one, you collect samples and count the nonconformances. Then, you compute the average number of nonconformances per unit, which we call U-bar. Since the daily sample size varies, we have to compute average errors per unit using specific standard deviation formulas, taking the square root of U-bar over the sample size to set our exact control limits. If you look at the sample unit size column here, it jumps all over the place, from 92 down to 69, up to 86. Because of this, our standard deviation actually changes for every single sample. That means our individual control limits have to adapt dynamically. They aren't flat lines, they change every single day based on that specific day's sample size. And when it's plotted, you can really see it. Notice how the upper control limit, that line with the triangles, is completely jagged? It's shifting up and down, reacting to those daily sample size changes. And right at the beginning, bam, you can immediately spot that sample number 2 spikes right through that upper guardrail. There it is. One point appears to be out of control. Finding that single anomaly is the entire goal of this exercise. It instantly signals to management that a special cause of variation happened on that exact day in August.
So instead of panicking over general error rates, they know precisely which day to investigate to find the root cause.
Section 5. Selecting the right chart.
This logic tree is a lifesaver. It makes chart selection incredibly easy. You just start at the top. Are you measuring attribute data, like those categories of defects, or variable data, like length and weight? If you're building a controlled chart for variable data and you have constant sample sizes, you follow the path straight down to X-bar and R charts. But if you track attributes with unequal sizes, you land on the U chart we just looked at. You just follow the branches to find your perfect fit. Once you've navigated that tree, you simply pull the precise formulas from a master summary table like this one, whether you need an X-bar chart for variable measurements or a U chart for attributes. A table like this takes all the guesswork out of finding your centerline and control limits.
Finally, Section 6, Implementing SPC Systems.
To make sure you aren't just doing math in a vacuum, there's actually a formalized standard for implementation. The ISO standard 11462-1 provides a strict, global framework for deploying an SPC system effectively. It lays out the core goals of the system, outlines the exact conditions you need for successful implementation, and details the essential elements of the system itself.
When you're designing this organizational system, you really have to standardize your approach. You need to lock in your sampling basis, your frequency, and the location of your control limits. And regarding sample size, here is a really fascinating takeaway from the sources. In practice, a sample size of exactly 5 has been found to work incredibly well for detecting process shifts of 2 standard deviations or larger. It's essentially a proven sweet spot for operational efficiency.
Ultimately, these charts shouldn't just live in some manager's office gathering dust. Once a process is in control, these charts belong right in the hands of the trained frontline workers running the process. They need to use them daily to monitor performance and catch special causes the literal second they happen. And crucially, they should only stop the process and make corrections when an out-of-control condition is clearly identified on the chart, which completely prevents unnecessary tampering.
Which brings us to the ultimate question for your own organization. Are your current operational processes truly in control based on hard statistical boundaries, or have you just been getting lucky with your variation? I really hope this explainer has inspired you to take a hard look at your own workflows, apply these mathematical limits, and find out for yourself.